This week on Streaming Star Wars with Emmo and Fletzer, we break down the debut episode of Clone Wars Season 7, talk about our favorite member of the Bad Batch, and explore the Clone Wars' new shine.
It's not that they win, it's how they win that worries me.
It's Streaming Star Wars on a Friday. We are happy that we are in this moment together. I'm doing a lot of high-end gyrations. Doesn't do you any good if you're not watching. Welcome into Streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer. However, you may be watching or listening live on YouTube when we go live. When we do our new shows, you can also be listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to podcast shows. What a redundant phrase. Pete, the point is, they can find us in audio and video together as friends, best friends forever, as long as there's still streaming Star Wars content to discuss on Disney Plus. Because, God, if Disney Plus ended tomorrow, this show would be screwed. How you doing?
I'm doing good. There's no chance that Disney Plus is going away, is there? You just made me very sad.
No. They're making billions and billions of dollars. I think we're good. They just dropped a show today. It was something about clones. I don't give a damn.
Some sort. It's Clone Wars, Drone Wars. I'm not sure. Some sort of.
I don't think that Disney's really behind this. I mean, when Disney bought Lucasfilm back in 2012, this was like one of the first shows that got canceled. So I don't think Disney's very invested. I think Lucasfilm did this out of obligation. I don't know, something about the fans like begging and pleading for like a lot of years, and they earned this, and we got it back. I'm so happy.
Look, they're already saying it's the last season. I mean, come on, what kind of commitment to the show is that?
It's like it was all part of the plan from the start, Pete.
Oh, okay.
It's really inconvenient.
How you doing, man?
No, I'm doing really well. I gotta be honest with you. I woke up today, Pete, and I said I'm gonna make Mandy feel special.
Yeah.
And so I have Fridays and Saturdays off for the near future at least. And so I woke up this morning, and I know we've had this conversation on this show, but I still thought I was waking up to 12 episodes of the Clone Wars. And so I was giddy. She got up, went to work. She's a school teacher, so she gets up early. I went back to bed for another 20 minutes. I woke up, threw some water in my face. I'm going to sit down and watch the show. So I sit down, I get Disney Plus queued up, I find Clone Wars, and only one episode. Well, I'm like, this changes my morning strategy. So I watch the episode, really enjoy it, and then let's see, what did I do? I did all the dishes, I swept, I mopped, did the bathroom, made the bed, did some laundry, very little laundry, very minimal laundry. And then I went and ran 7 miles at the gym. Yeah. Met up with my buddy and helped him organize his toolbox. He got like one of those big tool 5-drawer cabinets from Harbor Freight that we built the other day. So now he has to go through and organize all the different shelves and put all the things in the spots. And then I made steak for dinner, grilled steak. It's 50 degrees where I am. And so we were able to light the grill for the first time of 2020 and made these steaks, and they were killer. But now I've got the runs, and I'm just sipping on my water. And I just want to have the best damn hour you and I could possibly have right now.
Well, we should probably start it by getting the video going. So people are telling us here that they are having trouble seeing us. They can hear us. I think they can hear us, but they can't see us. And why anybody would want to see us is still beyond me. But
I got it up. I'm not sure why the triple box didn't pop up. That's funny. That's really funny.
That's funny, haha, or funny?
No, it's funny, haha. Like it will pop up in any minute. Yeah. So what happened is OBS had an update, which is the operating program that I use for us to put the show out. See, there we are.
Oh, there you are.
And
there we are.
So, it changed my setting, and so I double clicked, and for some reason, I don't know, it didn't go through. But you know what? That's really boring conversation that no one gives a damn about. I think why we're all here is we want to talk about Clone Wars Season 7. That first episode dropped today, like we were talking about. We also got some insight into future Star Wars toys. We'll be talking about a couple of those coming up in the show. And then we may or may not get to it, and that's fine. There's someone going around the internet that is saying that Cassian is outright canceled. And I'm just here to tell you that that's BS, and I have no insider information. We will know if Cassian Andor is canceled. I think the PR over at Lucasfilm would be a little bit more stronger than leaking it through a podcast with 127 subscribers. So we will see. Cassian Andor at some point. I hope to the good God above, because I think it'd be a really good show. But I digress, man. Clone Wars, you watched the episode. I mean, what's the situation? Are you able to watch this before you go to work today? You watch it when you get home? Did you like it? All these things.
Yeah, so I was up at 6 in the morning, as I am on most days, and my son came in my room to wake me up, as he tends to do, and I said, you know what? Let's just, before we do anything today, let's take out the phone. We took out the phone and we just sat there, and we sort of snuggled close together, and we turned on Clone Wars and we watched it. We dug it. It was so, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great way to come back to it. And it's funny, I think I was mentioning to you a little bit before, David, that, for me, watching Clone Wars, because getting back into it and sort of doing my sort of pre-watch and all that stuff was, I had been watching sort of arc by arc. I was taking 3 or 4 episodes at a time and watching it. So for me to come in and watch this episode, it didn't feel any different to me than the stuff that I had been watching. So I think I take that as a very good thing. It feels to me like they have literally sort of picked up where they left off, and they're giving us a show that we expect. There's nothing that feels dramatically different. I mean, we had the fortune cookie at the beginning. We had the Clone Wars march, and straight into the action and the voiceover. It was just it just felt like nothing changed, which is really comforting and really, really good. I really enjoyed it that way.
You know, something that really excites me that I just read about the other day, and I had no idea this existed, but apparently like millions of fans did, which is there is a theory that the Clone Wars is actually propaganda, because how every episode starts with deep here in space, the galactic, it's like the voiceover. I don't know if I buy it or not, but that would be kind of cool. Because I think, didn't George Lucas always say that the idea of Star Wars is that it's being told by the Guardians of the Will, like it's being told like 100 years after the actual events of it happening?
Well, there's been a couple different sort of theories. I've heard both that it's a Guardians of the Will story. I think that was the original sort of intent. I think there's also there was the word that it was supposed to be told by R2 and 3PO. But I have heard that as well. I've heard that these are sort of like newsreels from the old, during World War II, when they would show newsreels before films in movie theaters, and this sort of same concept, which makes sense with that voice, because that's the same kind of voice that was, on the front in Germany, our boys are fighting, for democracy or whatever. But it's the same kind of thing. But
wow, you'd be so good in that. You could do that job too. I think.
They called me and I said, look, I'd love to do it, but I got 2 podcasts I got to take care of. So. Yeah. So no, but I guess the point that I want to make is that it feels like we're still home with this stuff. It's still it's nothing changed, except it looks a little bit better.
Well, I think I'm glad that you kind of bring this up, and I took the wrong shot, so I'm going to go back to this. I love ad-libbing about my production quality skills here. Something that I want to talk about, and I guess this is a fine time to bring this up, and then we can go to the poll that we threw out there on social. But I want to do a side-by-side. I was talking about this last week. Yeah. The fact that we've had several years off, hiatus between, the Lost episodes and the Season 7. And I think it's also really important to mention that, when you look at Clone Wars, everything after Season 5 is kind of ad-lib in its own right. Because the Lost episodes isn't the true Season 6. Those are just the episodes that were far enough along from Season 6, 7, and 8, because there was supposed to be an 8th season, right? That they made the decision to go ahead and put those, finish those episodes off and release those to the fans. Now here we are with Season 7, and again, this is not truly the original vision for how this thing was going to wrap up, but I think it's about as much closure as we could possibly hope for. Apparently, Dave Filoni was still consulting with George Lucas on this. What we got was some arcs that had gone through some stages of animation, and The Bad Batch was actually one of the ones that was released on StarWars.com years ago. There were like 2 or 4 episodes that got dropped, and so now we're getting to see Everything is shiny now. Everything's finished off. It looks really good. And honest to God, you got everything in this episode except for lightsabers. But you got
Right.
everything else. You got a bunch of clones blowing up droids firing
Mhm.
at clones. You got emotion. You got bang for your buck. This is something that Pete, you and I talk about all the time is if I want to invest all this time, energy, and money into Star Wars, I want it to be worth it. And so when you get only 12 episodes to wrap up the series, and the first episode is, I think, this tight as far as scripting, this tight as far as a direction where the story is going, it did not feel, when you watch those season 1 episodes, you're like, where are we going? We don't seem to know where we're going. And this is like, boom, we're right here in the heat of the battle. We're going to make this thing happen. I did a Clone Wars side-by-side, and I'll pull this up for you now. This is the difference between seasons 4, 5, the lost episodes, and then this season 7. This is what happens in a span of 5, 6, 7 years of hiatus. You get basically upgraded renderings that allow you to have more texture. And when you're looking at this screen, I want you to look at the hair, for example, with Anakin. And unfortunately, I can't get that Anakin on the right zoomed in enough. But Pete, you've said this before the show. You're always going to have that claymation view feel to this show, which I love. I love that.
Yeah.
But when you look at the hair, you can see there's more detail on the left. This is Anakin from season 7. This is from the trailer. And then look at the way that the light hits the faces. And this is something we talked about with Shannon on last week's episode. Light does so much, creating so much depth. And there's like light under the eyes that you don't really get. Everyone looked like they were sleep deprived in the original take of Clone Wars. I mean, even just look here on the right side. If you really look at his eyes, it looks like he's sleep deprived. And they're hanging out in space all the time. Like gravity's not pulling on them. This is an issue. But that's just because of the way that's where the tech was when they were telling these stories, half a decade ago or, longer than that. So it's really neat to come in here and see everything is kind of not glossy, but my goodness. Here's a great example, Pete. When you're watching this episode, in the very first 12 seconds, you go from space to those 2 gunships kind of cruising down to the Republic base. And you have the light coming down and hitting the water and the light coming down and hitting that strip. And there's 4 layers of lighting. And it looks real. And so that's really exciting to me. And so, you can really see how the tech has kind of been refined, how the animation has been refined on characters' faces. But also when you get those pretty landscapes, and you always hear me talking about the grand landscape shots. I love the ultra-wide shots in Star Wars. I think it's a great scene setter and great transition that George did, especially in the prequels. You can see, and this is worth it. To me, I know, like I said, we're not getting the true end to this series. They did. They take care of Asajj Ventress in the books. They're not. I don't think we're going to see Asajj Ventress back here in season 7, which is kind of a bummer. But if you take that out, I think I'm going to be really satisfied by the time we get to episode 12. But this first episode just really did it for me, and I'm going to stop talking. I want you to talk about what you really liked. I'm really surprised that you watched on your phone, man. This is something I thought for sure you'd watch on the big screen.
Well, it's interesting. All the Disney Plus Star Wars stuff, all of it. There's been 17 series. The Mandalorian and this, most of the Mandalorians, my first viewing was on my phone. Whether it was there was one morning I had to leave very early, and I was sitting outside of an office building, and I watched it in my car. So it's been, I've entered almost every one of these episodes from that, and then I tend to go back and I'll watch it again on my big TV with the big audio sound and really dig it. But
I'm really tired of you throwing your wealth in our faces.
There is zero wealth. It was just a big television. But the point being, I get into the story because 2 things. There's actually 2 reasons why I do it that way. Number one is, since, as you all know, I spend way too much time on Twitter. If I don't see the show before I open my phone, I'm going to be spoiled. So I end up watching. I watch it just so I make sure that I can experience the story. And I also want to watch it because we're going to be talking about it on this show every week. And then I get the chance to kind of sit back and watch it, usually with my son and or my daughter. But this time my son was with me, so we watched it together. I'm sure we'll watch it again before next week. But to your point, one of the things you were talking about was jumping right into the action. And it's interesting. One of the things that I noticed was that when I went to Disney Plus this morning, it wasn't really featured that episode 1, season 7 had dropped. It's not that it was hidden, it's just that it wasn't featured. It was part of the flow of the Disney Plus Clone Wars track, and you had to know that you were looking for season 7 and episode 1. And so it feels like it is just a continuation. And again, when you start this episode, it kicks right off into the action, assumes you know what's going on. There's no setup. There's no previously on Clone Wars other than that little intro, which doesn't even talk about all of you. If you don't know who Rex is, if you don't know who Cody is, you have no idea what's going on in this episode. So it was really interesting that they took that. I don't know if it's a risk, but they made that choice to just say, all right, if you don't know what's going on, you're on your own.
Well, I think I'm okay with how they just jump right in like that because
I loved it. I loved it.
You've had time to go back and watch the Clone Wars, and I think that for better or for worse, the reason why the marketing lacked so much on Clone Wars dropping is because I think they view like the people that want to see Clone Wars know that it's going to happen. I think that's a poor strategy. I would think that this would be a great opportunity to be like, hey, we're dropping season 7, and just in case you didn't know, we've got 6 other seasons right over here that you should watch. And we've got 20 episodes a season, and it could be a whole thing for the family. And, there's still people that don't understand that Maul is back.
Yep.
I would say, we put so much emphasis on the saga films when it comes to Star Wars, but you have a show that's 7 seasons long that is a big chunk of your overall storytelling on the canonical timeline. I think we should have gotten a little bit more marketing saying, "Hey, here comes season 7." But I think what I think the assumption is, well, if you're watching this, you know what's going on because I think they just give a lot of credit to the fan movement. I mean, when we were at Star Wars Celebration last April, what were they talking about? They were talking about how the fans showed commitment and proved to Lucasfilm, to Disney, that this needed to come back. There's all this excitement. I got an Ahsoka poster. It was a really great moment. But that is, I think that's just the reality of it.
But you bring up an interesting point about marketing because, interestingly, you had mentioned at the top of the show that this past week with New York Toy Fair, I guess it is,
Yep.
they dropped a whole bunch of toys, Star Wars related. And interestingly, one of the thing that I noticed is that I don't recall seeing any, and I could be wrong, any Rise of Skywalker toys. All toys from Mandalorian and a handful from Clone Wars, which means that even the marketing machine, even the merchandising machine for Star Wars is shifting to Disney Plus. We talked last week about the future of storytelling being Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it also appears to me that the merchandising is shifting to Disney Plus. And I'd love to look in the chat and see what people think about that, if that's going, how they respond to that. But what do you think about that, Dave? How do you feel about most of our merchandise? We're not getting an Exegol playset, but we are getting a Lego Razor Crest.
We should get a big floating rock that somehow has a laboratory inside and then can fit like thousands and thousands of Sith cultists. I don't know even that word that came out of my mouth. Souths. I was trying to say Siths, and I was Souths. Yeah, I work in TV professionally. I promise.
I think there should be a toy like a barrel of monkeys, but it's like a bucket of Snokes, and
This is not something I want to spend a whole lot of time on, but they have already made a Rise of Skywalker porno, so that's really exciting. If you want to get to know Zori Bliss on a whole new level. Come over here, stud. Is that a blaster? You just happy to see me? Hey, so I think it's funny though. One of the observations we'll get into this eventually, but I think you mentioned this on social media. Hunter looks like Topper from Hot Shots.
Oh, just like him.
Just like him. And I think that's funny. We got our buddy in here, Andy. Hey, should I be hanging out tonight if I haven't watched the episode? Listen, it's 20 minutes. Go watch the damn episode and come back. Yeah, you're going to be spoiled. I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, Andy, but we made a bold decision when we started this show that we are never, ever going to do a non-spoiler version of anything.
Right.
Because after about 15 minutes, It is just boring AF to talk about. I thought it used to be AF, but it's boring AF. That's how you say it. That's how the cool kids say it.
But I think you bring up a great point. We do need to
Thank
remind
you.
people, and we should remind people every episode that we are going into. We will talk about detail from what we know, what we've seen, and what just happened. This is not a place to cut. I mean, the objective here is to talk about what we saw with people who just saw it and want to talk about it. So,
clarification for the live audience: I will not be providing a direct link for the Rise of Skywalker porno in the live chat. That's been requested by a few people. I'm not doing that. I'm not spreading that out. You can go find it yourself. It was an ad that popped up, just like my Amazon ads. Okay, I didn't go looking for it either. You sickos.
I was gonna say, do you have it like saved in your favorites? Or what's going on?
It's on my home screen. You know how on Google it saves your most viewed pages? It's like
Right.
Ray with nothing on.
This is about to hit a ditch. Let's bring this back.
We might already be in the ditch, honestly. Nick Melky is watching this show going, what the? Anyways, he's actually bringing up the Lego Razor Crest, which really is a nice segue back into the Toy Fair conversation.
Thank you.
And I'm fine with kind of just going in any nook and cranny in this hour here, Pete, because I think that I just think that we had the flexibility tonight. Do you want me? I can go ahead and pull that up. Did you have a favorite toy from the Toy Fair that you wanted to highlight?
Well, yeah, I think it was. It's funny. I have my 7-year-old son who is really into Legos right now, and I have gotten into Legos as a result. And Razor Crest, I think, is an underrated ship in the Star Wars universe. There it is.
And there it is.
I can't wait to get my hands on that. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be at a price point around. I'm gonna call it $99. I'm going at $99.
Jesse,
do we know what it is?
Jesse's in the live chat, and he already pre-ordered it.
Okay, Jesse, if you could let me know what it is, so
let us know.
I'll know what. But more importantly, it comes with a Baby Yoda minifig. So I put something on Twitter. I said, if you want to get me to buy the $700 Star Destroyer, put a Baby Yoda minifig in it, and I'll pick that up too. But I'm excited about that. And what? I wonder, and this could put us into a ditch. But you said we can go wherever we want on the show tonight. Somebody had said, and I wish I could remember who it was. I would love to give her credit. I know it was one of the
$129.
$120. All right, I'll do it. I was gonna, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna buy it at this point. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I love that thing. But somebody had said, and again, if I find it, I will give her credit. That when Baby Yoda when his name is finally revealed, it's going to be the next Star Wars controversy. And I'm certain of it. And what's interesting is there's so many. Like, I would say 80% it felt like 80% of the merchandise that was previewed is the child. And it's funny, they're promoting it as the child, and eventually he's going to have a name. And it's going to, and first of all, like this person was referring to, nobody's going to be happy with it. Second of all, they're going to have to re-merchandise everything as, Steve or whatever his name's going to be.
I was going to say, it's going to be Scott. Scott Yoda.
Scott Yoda. So I'm excited. But I think to me, it's still an interesting take and an interesting thing that so much of the merchandise that's being put out, that's being offered from previewed from Toy Fair it's all from Disney Plus. And whereas in years past, we would have gotten so much content from the new movie, it's almost like they have already moved on from Rise of Skywalker, which seems a little strange, but and I may be overstating it, but that's the sense that I'm getting.
You know what? I just found out too. Jesse says that it is a Amazon exclusive, which is kind of exciting. Kind of surprised by that. Did not think that Lego would do such a thing. But I'm down. I will probably pick that one up. I got to tell you, when I saw the Razor Crest drop, this was the first time in about 4 years where I saw a Lego set and went, I have to have that.
Right.
The detail looks really good. We had Jalen on Beyond the Blast Doors. This would have been about 6 weeks ago, and he's a big Lego YouTuber. and he has a very extensive mock of the Razor Crest. It's several thousands of pieces, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful, and I think that this set is, it's a Diet Coke version of what he did, obviously, but it looks really good, and the ship looks complete, which is really nice. I'm really tired of how Lego does a lot of these playset type of things. I like how it's a full ship. I've mentioned it before. I got the Force Awakens Millennium Falcon because I thought, oh my God, this is probably going to be like one of the last times we get a Falcon. No, they've done a Falcon every freaking year since. It was fun. So an inside joke for Lego people. They drop that there's a Razor Crest. The Razor Crest ship is coming out. In this Facebook group that I'm in, and this guy comments underneath. He's like, "Damn, I really thought it was gonna be Luke's land speeder, because there's been like 37 Luke land speeders since 1998." Anyway, that was a side tangent. Going into live chat, you mentioned finding out. Oh, here we go. Nick Milky wants to know: did Pete pre-order that Baby Yoda Funko? That is reportedly the best-selling Funko already.
I've ordered not only the Funko, the regular size, but the 10-inch, and also the there's another Baby Yoda thing that I've ordered. So yes, Nick, I'm on it, brother. I got him.
Wow, that is. I want to be you when I grow up. Okay,
that's not surprising to anybody, I'm certain.
No, I think we all expect. Honestly, we're disappointed if you don't get it. I think we'd be more offended, honestly, if anything.
What I haven't ordered is that $350, the one from was it Sideshow? I just
dude, that's hard to pull the trigger on.
It is. It's a weird price point. You know what I mean? It's like it's high, or as K2SO would say, it's high. It's really high, and but it doesn't even do anything. It sits there. Whereas
there.
the $60 animatronic one, that's something I think I might get.
The good people over at
wow. All right. By the way, I just pre-ordered the Razor Crest while we were speaking.
Wait,
here.
Are you serious? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you send me the link, actually? Because I'm on Amazon right now, and I couldn't find it. You were talking, and I was ignoring you. I feel so bad. But now to know that you were doing the same damn thing to me.
I was ignoring you. You were ignoring me.
It really tells me how much we care about
Both
this show.
Both of us ignore each other.
Yeah.
No,
I got this great book that has... It's like every Sideshow Star Wars collectible in there, and it's kind of tells you the history of it. And so Sideshow starts in '94, and it's kind of like really built up to be like the signature premier. They say toy. I'm gonna have to say like statue figurine. You don't play with any of these things. But honestly, $300 for a Sideshow product, Pete, is cheaper. I mean, a lot of these things are $700-800. Yeah,
you're right.
Anakin Revenge of the Sith bust that I would love to have. Not paying $800. It's just not. It's not a reality for me. And that's fine too. I think we all have to make wise decisions. It's like, when you go, you have a very cool pop collection, the Funko Pop collection. I used to love collecting all of the Black Series figures, but I had to drop out in the early 30s just because it was kind of hard to stay.
There's too many.
It's too many, and then it's like some of them. It's like I don't want these. I'm just buying these because I want the whole set, and I had to tap out. And, then I realized it's like, well, I like the figures, but I also like the helmets, and I can't do that. It's just collecting. It's, this is how they get you. They rob you of your money, and we give them the money freely because we're suckers. I'm sorry. I'm really insulting myself.
It's interesting, and maybe this has become our collector's episode, and Andy dropped off too soon. But it's you find that you end up going into different types of collections. So like the Funkos, I started when they did the Smuggler's Bounty. I started a couple here and there, and then all of a sudden I just realized I had dozens of them, and now it's completely out of control. But the other thing that I've gotten into are the Black Series helmets.
Yes.
The Stormtrooper, the Vader helmet, and I put on pre-order the Boba Fett, and now I want to display them. I just don't know where to put them. But so I'll have Boba Fett, I'll have Vader, Stormtrooper, and X-Wing pilot, and I also have a Kylo Ren, and they look great, but they're cool to have. But
can you wear them?
No, I don't. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I do occasionally put on the Stormtrooper helmet and sit there because it's cool. I've always wanted a Stormtrooper helmet. I've always wanted a Stormtrooper armor.
Misses. No role playing. Sorry, that was inappropriate. That's what I would love to do that, but I think I would lose my woman instead of keeping her around. So, hey, honey,
but
take her out of my X-Wing fighter.
But now my main thing right now is I'm sticking with the Funkos, and the Legos are I use my son as an excuse, but I love them. I mean, I have
Yeah,
right
because
here
aren't
in
you the
front of
guy
me. I
that
have
bought the
like
U-wing for your son, but it's really yours?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, we built the Tantive V4
Oh,
together,
that's right.
which means basically he put a couple pieces on it and I threw it together. So this is this is where it goes. This is how it happens. But um, yeah, I mean, it's fun, and that's where they get you. But again, back to if we can bring it back to Disney Plus somehow, I'll do my best. The fact that it's there's a handful of Clone Wars things and a lot of Mando and no films. And if you take what Bob said about the future of Star Wars being in films, that's where we are.
I
I mean, being in
Totally.
Disney Plus.
But this doesn't surprise me. I do realize that you asked me my thought on this, and I never answered it. It doesn't surprise me because of what you just said, and the fact that we are in. I would say the 21st of February is late February, so we're almost into March. Rise of Skywalker is a thing of the past. We're talking about getting the 4K Blu-ray at your local Walmart on the TV commercials. So I mean, the Rise
Yep.
of Skywalker is a thing of the past, and I'm okay with it. Like I honestly, I only saw the Rise of Skywalker twice in theaters. Gilbert
Yep.
saw it 9 times in theaters.
Hmm.
I was tired. If I'm being honest, I felt tired. There was a lot of going back and forth. I took a break from Twitter because I for like just like mental health.
Oh, it got depressing. Yep.
And
Yep.
so I think that I'm happy. Like I'm happy that we're not going to have to deal with this for a while, and I hope that because we won't have a movie hopefully for the next couple of years, I hope that allows people to get their heads out of their asses. And so that way when it comes out that there is a new movie, like we can just be excited that there's brand new Star Wars coming out on the big screen. And in the meantime, we're going to get brand new Star Wars. It seems like every fall and every spring, which I'm all about. We're going to have
Yep.
Clone Wars for the next however many weeks. We get Mando in October this year. I hope we get Kenobi in 2021, Cassian Andor whenever the hell they can figure that project out. And so I'm
Yep.
really thrilled about that. And I want to see those projects promoted, not just on Disney Plus. I want to see that on cable TV. I want to see a full marketing push for that because as we leave the theatrical movies in the rearview mirror, we really need to start training the next, like not even the next generation of Star Wars fans, but like the older fans, like my parents that are not on streaming. Actually, I take that back because my dad has Disney Plus, but like his generation, like the 65-year-old people and more, make sure that they know, hey, the Star Wars story continues on Disney Plus, and it's super easy to find, and there's great news stories there that you haven't seen. I don't think my dad's watched Clone Wars. I don't think my dad would watch Clone Wars, but he just binge watched The Mandalorian the other day, and
Okay.
he's just so excited for season 2, and that brings me a lot of joy. I hope to go and watch that with him. I still haven't been able to watch The Rise of Skywalker with my dad, which honestly breaks my heart. So I got to fix that as well. But yeah, man, it's going to be fine, and it's going to be totally fine. My one negative is the fact that they weren't promoting Clone Wars at any point in 2019, and I thought that they would really make a push after Rise of Skywalker came out, and that didn't quite happen. You got a couple of trailers, never saw those trailers on TV. You just saw them on social media and drop on YouTube. So, I think that as the shift to storytelling on Disney Plus continues to transition, so too maybe does that marketing approach, and they flesh that out and get more people on board.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's hard to use Clone Wars as the yardstick, and the reason I say that is because of the fact that it was heavily promoted as saved by the fans for the fans. Here's your gift for the fans, but what's a sin is that people are missing, and I missed it until very recently when I threw myself back into it so that I could become familiar with the series before season 7 came out. Right. It's some of the best Star Wars. The stories are so deep, and I saw Jerry Canon Junkie posting about the Mortis arc, which is I know a lot of people kind of feel like that's a little weird and strange and far out, but it's cool and it's great storytelling. And I think if I can try to bring it back to tonight's episode or today's episode. It's interesting because Clone Wars explores the human side of war in a way. We talked before, we joked about it being, propaganda films about World War II kind of concept. But in a way, it's almost like Band of Brothers, which was such a great HBO series about World War II. You get to know and understand. And I think what we saw in this particular episode, and now I'm actually bringing it back to the episode itself, is you're seeing Rex start to peel away from what's expected of a clone, sort of keeping things in a way from Anakin, having his own individual thoughts about loss and, losing Echoes. And, there was this just concept of the clones are people too, if that's a thing. And it was interesting to see how that is developing, which is to me at the heart of what Clone Wars is. When you watch Clone Wars, they're great stories, and you get more Anakin backstory and more Obi-Wan story, and you learn about this phenomenal character named Ahsoka, and the way Ahsoka was sort of forced out of the Jedi Order, and just there's so many human stories happening in Clone Wars. It's amazing to see that. And for people who aren't watching it because it's quote unquote just a cartoon, or people who like myself, just for whatever reason, even gigantic Star Wars fans couldn't get into it. It's a shame that they're missing it. And I think if Disney could promote it a little bit better, I think more people would be able to get into it.
I don't think you're wrong, and I love how you say it's like the Band of Brothers, because I totally think you're right. I think the storytelling is so strong. Keep in mind, this is the last great gift to Star Wars fans from George Lucas.
Yep, that's a great way to put it. Yep.
This was his baby, and I'm thrilled. There was an article, I believe it was Slash Films, that did an interview with Dave Filoni, and Dave talks extensively about how he still reaches out to George for advice because he recognizes that George is the creator, and he deserves to continue to help mold it. And I was like, yes. Can I snap louder to my microphone? Like, yeah, that's great. and to have him continue to have a hand on how the story evolves. And that Dave and Lucas had a conversation at some point back in 2008 or 11 or whatever it was, saying, this is how I kind of see it, wrapping up. And so, Filoni now gets to carry that torch. We always talk about how he's the heir apparent with all the Star Wars storytelling.
Did you say heir apparent or heir apparent?
I meant to say heir. Did I say hair? Okay, let me tell you.
Maybe my headphones might be breaking up. But
no, you're fine. I said the wrong thing, but I got to tell you this story, and I'm going to put me on full shot. This is another tangent, but then we're going to come right back to the episode, I promise. So today I'm barbecuing, Pete, and I have my chimney that I put my charcoal in. And I don't have my traditional Kingsford charcoal. I have the ready-to-light charcoal. And I still thought that I needed to put lighter fluid on it. Okay. So
ooh, kaboom.
I light this thing up, and I'm trying to get down into the chimney. So the chimney, the hole, and I'm trying to, this is inappropriate looking, but, like I'm trying to shake it up and make sure that the flame gets to the bottom. I'm not paying attention, and I had just washed my hair, so it wasn't like I didn't have product in it. It was kind of, I at least singed my hair. I'm wearing a hat right now. It's not bad. Like it just made hairs shorter. It's not like I burnt the side of my head, but I'm pretty sure I said hair because I was having like PTSD to that tragic moment. Mandy's there. She's like, "Oh my God, you're on fire." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I put my hand. I went like this. And
you were like, "That's right, baby. I am on fire."
Girl, listen, she could not have been more in love with me when she took that first bite of that steak. She was thirsty. Okay, so I take my hand through, and it's all this like charred hair. It smells terrible. Anyways, let's transition back in the episode like this as well, because we also have a poll that we did on social, and I think we should do it now. And I'll you want me to take the lead on this, or
go for it, man. Go for it.
So the poll question was, what did you think of the premiere of Clone Wars Season 7 today on Disney Plus? We only had one episode, like we said before. 66% say they loved it. 24% say it was pretty good. 8.2 meh, not really feeling it, and 1% just flat out disappointed, not feeling it at all. Which this doesn't surprise me. I think that I'm surprised I'm more surprised that it's not so lopsided on the ends of the spectrum. Like I really did envision it would be like loved it or I'm really disappointed because we kind of already know this story. But I'm assuming there's a lot of new people that never saw those, those pre-rendered episodes on StarWars.com. So I'm sure that again, this was a real reward for them. Did the results surprise you, Pete, or is this exactly kind of like how you thought it would fall out?
I am not at all surprised by this at all. I think
You're so
you know,
smart. You're so smart.
it's not that I'm
You
smart.
knew
I
it.
mean,
You
I
knew
I
it.
am a genius. A lot of people don't know that, but no, totally kidding. Ugh, I'm making myself sick. No, I'm not surprised because I think people were so excited for it to be coming back. I think there was a good chance that people were going to love it. And honestly, as a Clone Wars episode, it worked great. I mean, it worked really, really good. So loving it is, if you like, to me, this felt like sort of mid-season Clone Wars, right? It was, you had a big battle, you had the clones sort of on their own in a way, or well, not in a way. In this case, they were completely on their own, but it was a story led by clones. It wasn't led by Anakin or Obi-Wan or Ahsoka. It was, to me, it was a classic Clone Wars episode. So to love it is not a bad place to start. 1% disappointed. You're always going to have somebody who's going to click that, and
I
I'm
thought it
not
was you trying to
surprised
be
that.
funny.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But I'm not surprised to see that such few people were like, okay. I think this one, it was solid. I think it could be, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put this, 7.5, 8. I think it was right around there.
I really, again, and we haven't really gone step by step of what happens in this episode. It's not something we like to do. We like to try and find more of like the storyline and just focus on that. You've watched
Right.
the episode, you know what happened. We don't need to
Th-
regurgitate it
There's
for you.
there's plenty of shows out there that'll go, and then this happened. Remember that?
Yep.
And then this happened. Remember that?
I will tell you though, did you not feel like the Bad Batch? Okay, and again, last week I said how this feels like Scar Squadron. I don't think I'm going to enjoy this much. I
Mhm.
really enjoy the Bad Batch crew. These 4 guys are really cool. The
Oh, yeah.
choreography of their infiltration of the outpost and then the actual signal dish, I thought was really cool. And they were doing things that we hadn't seen before. I loved how they were throwing the detonators or whatever. And,
Oh, those were great.
They're
Yeah,
picking them off in the
yeah.
air. Yeah, and just the whole sequence of they infiltrate the outpost and just how the camera, they're going down the hallway and that camera is coming around 180 degrees.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed that. That it felt cinematic, but just like the moves they were doing, it really reminded me of something about in that Revenge of the Sith documentary. I don't even remember what it's actually called, but it's the behind the scenes of that. And Lucas is talking about how in Attack of the Clones, you kind of just had clones walking and shooting. And it was really important that in Revenge of the Sith, the clones actually looked like they had some military training. And then you see the Bad Batch, and it's like, oh, damn, these guys are like Navy SEALs, Marines walking up in this thing. It was just like working so well in tandem. And, it's like, why did the Empire not use clones? Because these guys are so much more badass, but I digress.
Well, what I liked about it too was because I haven't watched prequel stuff in a couple months, and I one of the things I love about Clone Wars the series is sort of the goofiness of the battle droids. I love that they're a step behind. I love they say goofy things, and I loved watching the Bad Batch go in and dispatch all of them, and just kind of take it out on their own, which was so cool and just fun to watch. And then it's funny, I'm watching, I'm like, well, they're having no problem with, dozens of battle droids. And then the super battle droids come in and you're like, okay, these guys are trouble. These guys are difficult and they were more difficult to deal with. So it didn't feel easy. It felt like they worked their way through it. It felt like it was a challenge. And it was great, and I really liked watching. I really liked watching the way it came out. To your point, the choreography was great, and it was shot like a film, man. I mean, that's one of the things I think I got as I was watching the arcs. As I've said it 4,000 times, that's the way I got back into Clone Wars. Relied on the internet to tell me what groups of episodes to watch, and when you watch them that way, they feel like sort of compact films, and this felt that way too. And I'm I said with Mandalorian that I was happy that it dropped once a week, and I'm glad that this is dropping once a week because I don't want to have to feel like I have to watch it all at once because I don't have that attention span. But I can't wait for next Friday again, and I love that feeling. I love that feeling that Disney Plus is giving us of, okay, is it Friday yet? Is it Friday yet? I can't wait to see that next episode. And while this didn't end on a cliffhanger, it did end on sort of a somber sort of consideration note. Um, I'm excited to just see more of this. I just want to see more.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you. And what I just found was I just found the link to pre-order the Lego Razor Crest, and I am sharing that right now in the live chat. So if you're watching live, you can find that in live chat. If you are not, no problems at all. What I'll do is I'll put that down in the description and in the comment section, so that way you can go directly there, pre-order it, put it in your cart, make sure it comes to your front door. Again, we mentioned some others have already bought it, already pre-ordered it. Yeah, maybe we could do like a live build, and that would be a lot of that would be a lot of fun.
That would either be fun or the most boring podcast ever.
Well, no,
One
you
of
know what
the-
we could do, and this is super illegal. What we could do is we could play episodes of The Mandalorian in the background while we
Right.
build, and maybe we get copyright claims or not. So the reveal of this episode, and it is a reveal. If you never watched this before, if you didn't know the story before about the Bad Batch, this is a reveal. Ekko is alive. And I love how they played that up through the episode because, they reference Ekko at the beginning with the whole, playbook is, what Rex and Ekko drew up back in the day. He
Yep.
was killed in that crash, oh man, was it season 5? I can't remember. But then, he just keeps coming back. And I like how they played that up to the point where it's like, there's that murmuring, oh, it sounds almost human-like. Oh, that's a number. Yep. Oh, that's Ekko. He's alive. It felt very reminiscent of the suspense, spy vibes I got from the lost episodes on Camino when they're trying to figure out the implants in the clones. That same kind of tone. It was captured.
Yep.
It really worked
Yep.
for me. And I'm like, I'm really intrigued. And so, like, when that episode ends, and it's like, we got this location. Well, we clearly know where we're going next episode. We're going to go to this planet where they're getting this signal from, we believe, is a live Ekko. And is it Ekko as Ekko? Is it Ekko hooked up to tubes and contraptions, being manipulated by the Separatists? I'm really curious now. And to your point, yeah, I like the fact that we get all week to discuss this on Twitter, theorize. Everybody's going to have a poll question of the week, right? And it's going to allow us to come to the table and watch it on Friday and find out what it is. And then we just rinse, lather, and repeat for the next several weeks. And honestly, this is great. In the age of binge watching, this is completely counter to that habit that we've been placed in. And it's really satisfying. It really allows me to look forward to it. I know I'm getting Star Wars for the next 2 months, and that's really exciting. Again, what's the advantage of going to Disney Plus and shifting the storytelling focus there? It's the fact that we get not just like 2 hours of Star Wars and then we have to wait 3 years for the next thing. We're going to get a little bit of Star Wars every week, and it's just a great time to be a fan.
I made a comment on Twitter the other day because there were some more people just bitching and complaining, which it doesn't matter. Now we're 2 months away from Rise of Skywalker, and the conversation is still happening. And the point that I made is we have gotten more hours of Star Wars, if you count Mando, if you count the 5 films, and you count the next, 12 episodes of Clone Wars, more Star Wars than we got the entire 2 trilogies combined. And so I've said it on other people's shows. I've said it with you. I've said it to anybody who will listen. This is a great time to be a Star Wars fan. And if you're trying to find something to complain about, you're going to find it. But there's no reason to complain about it. I think we're in a really good spot. There's some great content coming out. And I think what's interesting is the stories that we're seeing. And as we come down the home stretch of tonight's episode, I'd love to talk to you a little bit, David, about how you feel about what we're learning here. I think we're seeing, and Andy said it somewhere in the chat, Andy Lemaire said, the clones are even having trouble with the war. We saw it with Ahsoka. Ahsoka was torn about what a Jedi's role is in a war, and even the clones now are starting to question what it's all about. And I think that's a really, first of all, that's a heavy subject. It's a deep subject. I love watching it with my son, right? Because as a 7-year-old, his perspective is always going to be a little bit different, and a little bit more, innocent. And he's not digging into the deep psychological challenges of war. He just loves the action. He loves the characters. I have to say, this is one of my favorite things over the last couple of weeks related to Star Wars. I'm in the kitchen. I'm on my laptop doing something. He's in the family room and he's catching up on Clone Wars himself. And I hear this, hey, Dad. I'm like, what's up, bud? He goes, is Grievous an alien or a robot? And I was like, cool, we're going to have a conversation about Grievous. And it was so awesome. But how do you feel about where this story is going and what they're exploring in Clone Wars right now?
You made the point earlier in the episode. This is such a smooth connection, transition from season 6, those lost episodes, and it feels like we're getting right back into it, where we've seen clones already starting to go against their programming. And something that I think Dave Filoni, George Lucas, and crew did so well all throughout Clone Wars was show you personality with these clones. There's a huge moral issue with cloning. And so to see that you had each of these individuals who are essentially the same person have different personality, be influenced, have opinions, have critical thinking, not just in the battlefield, but emotionally being able to sift through those feelings of knowing that they are a product of Jango Fett. And so I'm really looking to see how Rex evolves in the next 11 episodes, because he himself has to get to the point where he identifies there's something wrong. He gets his ship moved out. He goes into hiding. And I'm curious to learn how that works, because Rex is kind of like the good old boy, just ready to fight. He's ready to, blow up some clankers right next to Anakin Skywalker. And to see his evolution of identifying that maybe he's part of the problem, or he feels like he's part of the problem. In all of this, the clones are the most innocent. This is what they were built to do. So from that standpoint, I'm really excited to explore. And there's been some conversation in the live chat in this episode, just talking about the moral complications of the clones and how they're growing. And it's best demonstrated right here in this episode with the Bad Batch. Bad Batch 99. You have 4 clones that have these, I don't remember, what was the word, malfunctions they had, or, they were like designated malfunctions or whatever, so that they were heightened sense. Hunter has heightened senses. Tech is really intelligent. The big guy is really strong. I'm blanking on his name, but the sniper. It wasn't
what was his name? Yeah, you had Wrecker, Tech,
Gredline
Hunter,
or something,
and
it wasn't Target, but he has the bullseye on his eye. The character design is so cool, but each one of those dudes looks so vastly different. Then you just see the normal clones that are there when they go to meet him. So you had Cody and you had Rex and a couple other troopers. They have their helmets off. Okay, they're traditional clones. They all look different. Which one's Cody, which one's Rex, which one's that guy. A lot of facial tattoos. It's an element of the Star Wars storytelling with Clone Wars that I like to follow a lot, because I think it was just so well done, and it fleshes out people's frustrations with Attack of the Clones and with Revenge of the Sith. I've always said, I personally feel Revenge of the Sith, you can make an argument to put that as the 3rd best Star Wars movie to date. I think you can make a solid. For me, it's Empire, it's A New Hope, and then it's wait, or is it Revenge of the Sith, or is it Return of the Jedi? Maybe it's Force Awakens for you. Maybe people laugh at me all the time, but I'll tell you this: Phantom Menace is maybe in my upper half of Star Wars movies. But Attack of the Clones, I think a lot of people thought the prequels were going to start out with a young Anakin Skywalker already training in the Jedi Order, and immediately see this kid wreck and be superior to everyone around him, and then fall to the dark side and see the empire built up. And what we got was like adolescent, creepy, Are You an Angel? Anakin and Phantom Menace Attack of the Clones. We spent like half that. We didn't start the war until like the last 25 minutes. And then Revenge of the Sith was like, yeah, we got to see a bunch of different planets, a lot of different battles. And, George had this grand plan of like there'd be like 9 battles that you tie into one or whatnot. But Clone Wars is able to take its time, take you to all these different planets, teach you all these different lessons, show you the different cultures. Here's it shows you how, the Republic we're meant to think that the Republic and the Jedi are the good guys, but we're also learning how they make some decisions that makes them not so great at other times. And so this is something that allowed George Lucas to really flesh out that era in his timeline. And I think overall, and I think after the end of Season 7, it will be looked at as a masterpiece in storytelling. And again, another property of Star Wars that advanced technology, advanced how story is told.
Yeah, and it is funny because now that I've watched Clone Wars and gotten into it, and I still haven't seen every single episode, but I've seen the quote unquote important episodes, right? I don't watch the prequels the same anymore. I don't watch Revenge of the Sith the same anymore. You go in and that this is where Revenge of the Sith is, and that's what's going to be cool about seeing where this show goes, because how far into Revenge of the Sith will it go? I'm starting to think it's going to be very little. But you look at that battle that's happening at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith and the events that happen throughout Revenge of the Sith, and now you have 7 seasons. You have how many episodes of content that have told that story in a way. And what I actually really like about it is that it makes Revenge of the Sith a smaller film, meaning that all this other stuff has gone on around, but it's just you're focusing really on Anakin and Obi-Wan and Padme and their little story over a 2-hour deep dive, but you have all this other stuff that's gone on. And honestly, it also, now when I watch the beginning of Revenge of the Sith and Anakin wants to go after and help out the clones that are flying with them at that opening battle, it changes that to me 100%. Because Anakin cares about the clones, right? It meant something different 20 years ago when it came out. It was just, it was like, no, those guys are meant to fight and die and whatever. And Anakin had some sort of, I don't know if it was a moment of conscious, but you see it now and you realize this history he had with clones, and those clones are getting destroyed and he wants to do something about it. And that is awesome. That changes those movies completely.
It really does. And if you go back to like the 2003 Micro series, I talk about this all the time. It's a Tartakovsky series.
Oh, I love that.
Samurai Jack. Yeah, I talk about it all the time. What it did so well was the series ended with Anakin getting all the stormtroopers to their positions to enter the Battle of Khorasan, which is the start of Revenge of the Sith. And I like the idea. I would love it if you got to return to the Battle of Khorasan in this series, in this Season 7. I think it'd be cool if they went all the way to the Utapau sequences. If somehow they could navigate that, because that would be, when you talk, I love how you bring this up because it's so absolutely true. When you're watching the movies, knowing what you know through Clone Wars, it changes your understanding of everything. Can you imagine if you're watching Obi-Wan on Utapau, and you know that Maul and Ahsoka potentially are dueling each other on Mandalore?
Yeah.
And you got Obi-Wan, so you have Obi-Wan there, Anakin is somewhere, Mace is somewhere else, like, mind blown. And exactly what you said, I think Revenge of the Sith becomes even smaller because Revenge of the Sith then is just kind of tying it's just the end of the war. It's ending that.
Think about that. That's Commander Cody that gets the message from the Emperor and opens fire on Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. And we've seen 7 seasons of Commander Cody serving Obi-Wan and Anakin. It's really, again, 20 years ago is a different story, and to see it happen, it made sense. But now it means so much more, and that's a huge credit to Filoni and that relationship he had with Lucas, and still has. and bringing those stories and giving more weight and more value to the prequels, which are largely maligned and not loved by the quote unquote average fan.
I want to make a bold prediction here, but I'm copping out, and I'm going to check Wikipedia real quick to see
Yeah.
if I'm right here. But I've always kind of been curious. We know what happens to Rex now after the events of the Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith. We
Yep.
see him again in Rebels. But what happens with Cody? And so my question is there a chance that we do get to see Cody back on Utapau in this series, and we see Cody actually taken out during the show?
Oh, that would be that would be heartbreaking, but it would make sense, right? I mean, once Order 66 happens, and that's why I hope this goes into Revenge of the Sith a bit, because once Order 66 happens, these characters that I'm curious how my son is going to react, right? Because he loves clone troopers. He loves everything about them. Like whenever we see a clone trooper action figure, that's what he wants. And I don't think it's clicked with him because he's not as connected to all the different pieces of it. I don't think he recognizes that the clone troopers turned into the enemy of the Jedi and just like robots turned on their masters. And that's a pretty, again, much like we were saying before, this is a pretty deep story, man. It's got a lot going on, and it's Cody, and it's interesting too, and I hope that this next 11 episodes gives us that interesting sort of connection, because Rex went one way and Cody, unknown to himself, went another. Right? By Rex removing the chip, he saw what happens. Cody has no idea what happens, because whatever happens with Order 66, it switches his mind and he becomes a slave to the Emperor.
So something I want to bring up here while I'm on this page, because I think it's very interesting.
Uh-huh.
The legacy section for Cody, and it just finished explaining how Cody takes out Kenobi with the ATTE on Utapau. The legacy of Cody: upon seeing the face of a clone Skywalker, now known as the Sith Lord Darth Vader, remembered Cody, Rex, Fives, and Ekko. Each name was a trigger for a memory, and Vader saw each clone as a ghost from his past. 15 years after the rise of the Galactic Empire, many of the codes and emergency protocols that Cody Rex had come up with during the Clone Wars were still used by the Emperor. That information source to my favorite, I think it is still my favorite canon novel right now, Lords of the Sith by, I think was it Paul Kemp that did that one? Check that out, Lords of the Sith, if you haven't read it. It's absolutely fantastic, and it was a lot of Clone Wars connections, references there. But yeah, I guess my point of sharing that is there seems to be a window. We don't know when Cody went out. Now again, and this is not to be confused with my high horse tantrum that I don't think that everything in Star Wars needs to be explained. But I think that it would be emotional. What it would be emotional if somehow Cody died, Rex was present, or Rex learns that Cody died, and that's what helps Rex see, oh, there's something wrong here. My assumption is that Rex is going to have that aha moment when clones have to turn on Ahsoka. I think that's what it all sets up with when you see all the troopers with their face paint. I think that's what's going to happen is they're her troopers. They go off on a mission, and then they actually try to turn on her, and they've got to blow out of here. If you see clone-on-clone battle in this season, that's going to be intense. It's going to be really, really interesting and emotional.
Well, we do know that at some point it has to go past that opening to Attack of the Clones. And I'm curious to see what it does. We do know that only from the trailer, right? Because we see Anakin talking to a pregnant Padme, which we know he didn't know about until he came back from that battle over Khorasan. So, it's so exciting. And again, this is why I'm like, all right, give me the next one. Give me the next one. Give me the next one. I'm ready to go.
No, I'm right there with you, and I'm jumping down in the live chat. Who would want this name? Good buddy of mine, Patreon supporter of Beyond the Blast Doors. He says, I believe Cody survives Mandalore, etc. He should be promoted within the Grand Army and be the nemesis or contrast to Rex. Rex is completely out of the game, so they wouldn't cross paths, and I guess that's why I want to see him go down in this series, because it would be like one last pass at each other, because we know, Rex sits out for all those years. He gets picked up in Rebels. He ends up joining the Rebellion. We think he's there on the Battle of Endor. But, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, Paul S. Kemp was the guy who wrote Lords of the Sith. Got to check that out. Wish I had it in hardbound. Biggest regret was not buying it hardcover. I have the paperback. Makes me mad every time I look at it. Makes me mad every time.
So awesome. So do we know anything about what next week is, other than I think it's a continuation of this arc? Is that correct?
I think Bad Batch is a Bad Batch. That sounded like Bad Bitch, and I wasn't trying to say that. It was Bad Batch.
I thought you were saying Bed Bath and Beyond. I wasn't sure.
Although that is a great store, and I like going there a lot. I think, if I'm correct, the Bad Batch arc is 3 episodes.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I hope that next. We've kind of speculated on already. I'm hoping that they're going to go down to that planet and see if they can find Ekko. I think that would be really a lot of fun. I don't want to spend too much time on this. If it is 3 episodes of this arc, that is a 4th of this final season. And
right.
I'm being selfish here. I want to see lightsabers. I want to see Ahsoka and Maul go at it. Like, the Mandalore stuff is going to be incredible. And I think what was great, what they did on Disney Plus, was they did that best of playlist for the Clone Wars. It's like 20 episodes, like the 20 must-watch episodes. And yeah, they're the big ones. Although I don't agree. They put the very first episode on there, which is kind of lame, because it's just like Yoda and 5 clones running around away from Asajj Ventress. But
it's funny. I think that's why I didn't jump into Clone Wars, was because of that first episode. I was like, yeah, that's all right. It didn't do much for me.
Yeah. So, but my God, doesn't take long for it to do a whole lot for you. I love like those Malevolence episodes. I thought those were a lot of fun. And going back to what you were talking about, your conversation with Jackson, the Grievous, I think in Clone Wars, is just second to none. I think that is another character that really benefited from the Clone Wars getting 5, 6, 7 seasons. Is you got to spend more time with Grievous, and you get to learn more about him. I think one of the best episodes. I think it's episode 7, season 1. It's Grievous's lair. These 2 Jedi locate his lair, they infiltrate it, and then Grievous shows up. It is visually, it's one of my top 5 episodes. Something about the fog, how the lair is captured in the fog, and just the aesthetic of the culture that Grievous is from. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Cool.
Well, Pete's done with this episode. Can you hear it in his voice? He's like,
"No,
I'm
just
there's
so much more we could talk about. Like, I get to dig in."
It's 11:10 at your spot. I forgot. Yeah, someone's asking Rick Villanueva. First off, he's been trying to find me a hardcover, so I don't know what I do if you do find it, but I'll do something for you. And then they're asking who. Hard to say who takes out Rex's chip, and I just wonder. I wonder if ultimately it's himself. I don't know. That would be great to see it tie back though with those lost episodes. I think that would be really good. But there's a lot of different directions though too, where they can go with this, and I'm looking forward to the Maul stuff. Be okay if Tarkin popped back up. I think that'd be kind of cool to get.
Yeah, I love Tarkin in the few times he showed up. I thought it was a cool connection. He's still fairly junior. I thought that was pretty cool.
It was funny when I was doing the side by side earlier. Oh, what do you have? Oh, are you almost out of wine?
Well, no. Rick was saying that I'm out of wine. I'm not quite out of wine. I'm almost out of wine, but I'll make it through.
I'll pull this image up. So I used this image earlier for the side by side, showing you just kind of how they refined textures for season 7. But yeah, I mean, Tarkin, young Tarkin, was so cool to see in Clone Wars. We got a couple episodes with him, and I just remember the excitement, and like I lost my mind at the end of Revenge of the Sith when you're on the Star Destroyer and it's Vader and Tarkin looking out over the Death Star. I mean, I lost my mind. I also want to find out how much time is it between, the events on Mustafar and then that scene where they're watching the Death Star being constructed. Like when you're watching Revenge of the Sith, is the Death Star that far along under construction? Which brings me back to, do we see the beginning construction of the Death Star in season 7? That would be insane. Like,
that would be awesome.
What if we go back, because we've gone back to Geonosis twice in the Clone Wars. We went back to Mustafar once or twice, I think, in at least once in Rebels. So what if we're
Right.
going back to Mustafar again, and you're seeing how like the Republic was already starting to enslave the folks on Mustafar to get them up to Poggle Lesser and all them, trying to get them up to space to start constructing this Death Star, which also ties into Lords of the Sith, because in Lords of the Sith you learn about the Geonosians helping with the construction of the Death Star. You also get that in Catalyst, which is maybe I think it's my second favorite canon book, and you learn about the revolt, the fact that the Geonosians actually planted like bombs and destroyed. The reason why the Death Star took so long to construct the first time was that Geonosians were like finishing up a section of the Death Star and then blowing the whole thing up as an FU to the Empire because they were enslaved. So some fun facts, some knowledge I'm dropping on you, trying to help the people learn about the Star War.
About the war in the stars.
About the war in the stars. Pete, it's always I'm always so thankful to get to visit with you, talk Star Wars. I don't make it easy on Pete, and I'll confess to you right now. There are some times where we finish an episode and it's like, hey, we're doing this next Friday. And there's some times like this week where it's like Thursday and we're going, okay, Friday or Saturday, what's it going to be? And he's been super patient with me. I'm kind of in the mode right now where I'm like trying to like figure out like my next step with my career. And Pete is always just like so understanding. And I think what's so great about the flexibility and the laxness, that's not a real word, but go with me on it, behind the scenes, I think it really helps on air for this show. I like how I always do feel like you and I are kind of like at a bar just pulling up and talking about this week in Star Wars as far as Disney Plus goes. And it's just a lot of fun. So glad to share it with the folks in the live chat,
Well, it's funny. I'd love to, feel free to hit us up on Twitter. The way I look at this show, and I think it's kind of become this, and I look a little bit behind the curtain. When we're done with the show, David sends me the audio, and then we put it up on Around the Galaxy, and then Monday or Tuesday I finally get around to listening to it after I've thrown it up there. And I think of this show sort of almost like a sports radio show that's talking about StarArs. I think, like for those of you who listen to sports radio, I live here in the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area. So I get Philly sports radio, I get New York sports radio, and it's just two guys kind of going back and forth, hitting different angles. And, sometimes, we start talking about the Yankees, and before they're done, they're talking about, the Boston Bruins somehow. And I don't know how it happens, but it was entertaining along the way. And hopefully you guys feel that way too. David and I clearly have a passion about Star Wars, and, without getting too sappy, and maybe it's the wine talking, but, David and I sort of met over Facebook almost a year ago, and it's cool just to make friends through social media and through Star Wars, and the fact that you get this opportunity to talk about it is fantastic. And I look forward to David, if I ever sound disappointed that we're not on a Friday night, it's because I look forward to having these sort of downloads with you. It's a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. I always like to tell the story of how like I had Pete come on Beyond the Blast Doors last April. And then he's like, wow, this was fun. I bet I could do it better than you. And then he did. You jerk.
It's like, that seems easy. That guy can do it.
Pete's like, hey, the show just hit 15,000 downloads. I'm like, that's cool. It took me 2 years, you prick. No, I love you, buddy. No, I think it's a lot of fun, a lot of love between you and I, a lot of love between us and everyone who joins in every week, a lot of love between us and Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And just really, just so thankful. And we're about to hit the road to Star Wars Celebration is going to start somewhere around May 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Once May 4th hits, I think that's where the attention shifts, and you're going to be there. I know you're going to do stuff, I'm sure, for your show. We're hoping to have you actually, we've talked about this very little, but we're hoping to have Pete come on Beyond the Blast Doors and be like our live correspondent from Celebration. We're talking about producing literally like a 4-hour show for Beyond the Blast Doors, and then having like Pete like calling, having come in and all that stuff. So we're trying to figure that all out. But I'm just excited. Like I think that I'm really excited about this new age of Star Wars. I'm really excited not to have to go to the theater for a little bit. I'm really excited about getting all these little nuggets at home, and I think we're in for a fun ride. I'm also going to need you to pick up a few Del Rey exclusive hardcovers while you're out there. Just going to throw that
Well,
out there.
I just found out that I'm traveling to LA in about a week and a half, and I'm going to hopefully explore Galaxy's Edge for the first time.
You
And
jerk. You jerk.
I'll be happy to do a remote for you for Beyond the Blast Doors there, because I'd just be happy to tell you about it. I'm really excited to give it to check it out. And I think me and the mayor of Batu, Mr. Jason Ward, are going to get together and explore. Nobody knows Galaxy's Edge but that guy.
Well, he's
so-
there every week.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Every week there is some post from Jason being like, "Hey, here I am on the Falcon." Right?
Well, when I told him I was going to be in LA, I sent him a message. I said, "Hey, dude, I'm going to be out there," and I was like, "I'd like to check out Galaxy's Edge. If you haven't been there too much and you want to go, I'd love to join you." So,
did you see something I want to bring up? You mentioned Galaxies. We're going on a tangent here. It's fine. Did you see that for the Florida park?
Oh my God!
They're doing that all immersive hotel. And did you see that 2-night, 3-day stay starts at $3,300 for one person, or just over $1,000 per person per day. Cabins do sleep up to 5 passengers, and there's also the option of maxing out the cabin occupancy for a relatively cheaper price per person. A cabin with 5 passengers would cost you $7,200, or roughly $1,400 per person, for a more feasible $480 per person per day price range.
Wow. Yeah. So here's the thing. I was thinking about it. Right. My first thought was that sounds like the price the price you pay for a cruise, right? But it's not. It's dramatically more expensive than a cruise, because you're only there for 2 nights, right? It's 3 days, 2 nights, or something like that. The exclusive experience within the hotel must be amazing, but for that kind of money, man, I mean, that's a little bit, that's asking a lot. And it's funny. I look, for those that can afford it, God bless, go have fun and enjoy it. And the way I think about it is, okay, so this is going to sound kind of weird, but if they're going to drop you into that experience and then they take you on a special excursion to Batu, there better be something like, have you watched the show Westworld on HBO? Love that show. But it better feel like Westworld. Like, you better be like able to shoot stormtroopers and like, for that kind of money, you need to be so immersed. It needs to be just it needs to be something else. I mean, from what I understand, Galaxy's Edge is an amazing experience, but God, that's a crazy number.
Well, no, I'm doing the math here, man. Like, I'm not trying to be like a ungrateful fan or anything, but I just did the math. The cost to go for that 2-day, 3-night, or the 3-day, 2-night thing, and 5 people, $7,400, whatever it is. That's how much my wedding reception costs.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's insane. I can feed 250 people for how much it's going to cost to go to that hotel. And yeah, visually, like, I'm sure it's like a lot of fun, but you're promoting that to, I guess, the diehard fan that isn't going to have a problem throwing the money at it, and then the upper class. I can't do that yet. I'm only 5 years out of college. Sorry, but my God,
but I mean, yeah,
that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. But you know what?
Does Jason Ward have a discount card for that? I guess his card only applies for California.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but I mean, he lives right down the street, so he's got his 2 kids, so he gets I guess if I live close to Disney World or Disneyland, I probably would look into. I don't know what it costs for the season pass, but if you have the season pass, you just go every day if you want. But it is interesting, and I think kudos to Disney for looking for ways to, from a pure business standpoint, to quote unquote optimize the income, right? Because, excuse me, there are different ways to get into all these things. You can go to Disney at the park. You can go through just watching movies. You got the toys, you got the merchandise. If you want Star Wars, you can get it. And you know what? It is expensive, but you know what? The amount of investment they're making to make this work, it's fair.
Can I ask you though, because as a parent, how do you? I mean, obviously, we this is like after hours on streaming Star Wars, apparently. Um, as a parent, like, first, I'm gonna ask you a serious question. Would your wife go to Galaxy's Edge?
Well, so I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but when the tickets dropped for Star Wars Celebration, I bought 4 tickets. I got the hotel room. I haven't bought the plane tickets yet. And I told my wife that we were doing it. She was like, "Are you kidding me? I'm going to take a vacation to Los Angeles to go to 4 days of Star Wars nerdiness." And I was like, "Come on, it'll be fun." And just literally about a week ago, we had a conversation, and I was like, "Look, I will not be disappointed. I'll be disappointed, but I won't be upset if you don't go." And she's not going to Celebration with me. She's going to stay home. She's going to stay home with the dog and relax for 4 or 5 days at home. My dad, who I actually did a Father's Day interview with on Around the Galaxy, and who is the reason that I'm into Star Wars, and the grandfather of my kids, is going to come with us. And so
Oh yeah.
he's going to love that. He's absolutely going to love that. I think he's going to love it almost more than me, just to be with the kids for 4 or 5 days. That being said, to answer your question, my wife would probably not go. My wife is not, like, we've been to Disney World twice with the kids, and neither one of us are big Disney people, but we love the experience that the kids have. So, and as a parent, Galaxy's Edge is, and that's the brilliance of Disney here, right? Is Galaxy's Edge is as much for me as it is for Jack, my 7-year-old. Is it for my wife? Probably not. But if she sees Jack and Lily interact with Kylo Ren and they lose their little minds, that's huge, right? That means a lot. So
Right.
they've mastered the art of, and I have a really good friend, and she's one of these Disney vacation people. And I remember when my kids were really young, I was like, "Are they too young to bring?" And she said, "There's never a wrong time to bring your kids." And it's true,
Yeah.
because your children will love Disney if they're 2 and they see a princess and their eyes fall out of their head, or if they're 15 and they just want to go on the rides and hang out. So
The reason why I
it's
ask, the reason
yeah.
why I ask is because I'm trying to do the math for you. So like I get, because if you take, so now you're taking your dad, which I think is beautiful. Like, I freaking love that, and I'm so happy, not just for the kids, but for you to get to
Oh,
share that
it's
with
gonna be
your
so
dad.
cool
That
to
is
do
going
it
to be
with my dad.
amazing.
Yeah,
I'll never
I'm
forget
so
it.
excited.
That's awesome. But for you guys, 4 tickets into the park plus your
Yep.
lightsabers, if they want to get an outfit, food's a little pricey. I mean, you're going to be dropping. I mean, you're potentially dropping like $2,000 to $3,000 if you're in that park. If you all get a lightsaber, because each lightsaber is going to cost you
Yep.
what, 100.
Oh, and I have
200.
to tell you, Jack, every single time Galaxy's Edge comes up, when I told him that, because I'm going to LA for another reason, and I made the mistake of telling my kids that I'm probably going to go, and Jack's like, "You have to bring me home a lightsaber. You have to make me." And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. But you're right. It is very, and this is why when Disney announced, and boy, we really are going off topic, but hey, if you're along for the ride, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, baby. We got 12 people hanging out with us, man. Rick's in here. Steve's in here. We got Mr. Rez, Rick. We're having a great time.
When they announced the Disney After Dark um, at Galaxy's Edge for Star Wars Celebration, I considered going, but it's $110 a ticket, and so that's 4 tickets, right? So that's $400 to go to Disney after I've already spent money on Star Wars Celebration on the first day. So and what are you going to do when you're in there in Galaxy's Edge and with a whole bunch of Star Wars fans? You're going to be buying Star Wars crap all over the place. So, um, it's a major investment. It's a huge investment, and so, yeah, you're right. I mean, it becomes quite expensive. It becomes quite expensive, but it's again, it's that I think what Disney survives on is they know that you're paying for an experience, and it's a weird. So I have an episode coming up on Around the Galaxy next week with a guy named Charles Ross, and Charles Ross is sort of a preview spoiler. Charles Ross did the one man Star Wars show, and we were talking, and I think it's part of the episode, and he talks about how people are willing to pay to own just a little piece of Star Wars. They want to pay the minimum to get in, but then and by that he means like going to see a movie or buying Disney Plus. But then if you enjoy it, the amount of money people spend to own a piece of it, whether it's a lightsaber or, 100 Funko Pops or whatever your thing is, the amount of money that you pay just to have it be a part of you and a part of your life is really, it's an interesting sociological experiment.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you on it, and and I kind of felt guilty almost immediately because I started thinking about my collection. How far will you go to spend money to have a part of Star Wars?
Right.
3 years ago, I'm emceeing a trivia night in Quincy, Illinois, and one of the pieces put for auction is this signed photo of Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher.
Right.
Empire Strikes Back here, so like 1980, 79, and I dropped like 250 on it. And but I wanted it because they signed it, and it was right. It was 2 years ago. It was 2 weeks to the day of Carrie Fisher's passing when I got this thing. And yeah, I went to the point where I was like, well, I shouldn't spend this money, but I'm going to anyways. And you could probably make the same argument for the Lego collection, the figures, the books. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just whether you know what, I'll be honest with you. This is what I did today. And I think this is exactly what it is that we're talking about, Pete. I'm going through my toolbox. I've recently got into like just learning about tools and what they're used for. I fixed my dryer, and so now I want a buzzsaw. So that tells you everything about me in a nutshell. It's like I did the simplest thing, and now I want to have every damn tool out there. And I pick up my flashlight, and I'm like, wow, this kind of feels like a saber hilt. And then I went, like I looked around the room to make sure no one was there. I knew I was home alone. And I'm like waving around like a lightsaber. I'm like, you know what? Whether you're 27 or you're 7 or maybe you're 57, you know what? Just for a couple of minutes, how fun is it to pretend that you're there on the battlefield and you're immune, you can't be injured, and you're the hero of the day? Or, you're Luke Skywalker holding that lightsaber, that Excalibur for the first time, and you're about to start this incredible journey. Or maybe you're Ahsoka Tano and you're talking with Rex, or you're trying to get out of the Jedi Order. You're part of it. Like, that's really cool, and I think that's why people are going to Galaxy's Edge and have no problem spending the $200 or whatever it is to get the lightsaber. They don't mind paying for really expensive drinks. They don't mind buying expensive costumes there because it's like a tangible. It's their childhood. It's the nostalgia. It's tangible, and when you own it, no one can take it away from you. I think that's like a big thing too.
It's an interesting thing though too, because as we talked about earlier in this episode, and I can actually tie it back to streaming Star Wars and our typical content, and that is, what are we going to see on Disney Plus that ties things to that portion of Star Wars, the theme parks? Will we, as we're talking, it strikes me that I would not be surprised to see a Disney series, and maybe they bring Cassie in there or maybe something, but that takes place heavily on Batuu, to make it a place that the average person is going to want to travel to Batuu to see what happened there and to see that place. And, without movies, how does that park survive? And I say that at the same time that I realize that, they built in Disney World, they built the Avatar land, which to me struck me as really out of place. I mean, how many people are that big of an Avatar fan?
None.
That they went to it? Yeah, I don't know anybody who's like, my favorite series, my favorite movie is Avatar.
It was great when it first came out. Remember, it was like no one had seen a movie like that before.
Right.
And then the sequel was just it's been a decade, dude. I mean, it's past. I don't see how that park is going to make money. I just don't see it. You go on Twitter and you can be on, your personal Twitter, and maybe you subscribe to sports teams or whatnot, and news programs. You still get infiltrated by Star Wars fans somehow, some way. You could be you could subscribe to not. You still gonna get it. There is no one on the internet right now tweeting about Avatar. It's just not happening.
It's true. But interestingly, when I was down there for an event, and so I took an afternoon and I went over to Disney World, and I waited in line over an hour to go on the damn Avatar ride.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, especially because I was a little disappointed with the ride, but it's but it is, for a series that nobody cares about, they've done a nice job of creating that world. That's why I'm so excited to see Galaxy's Edge, to see that world come to life, because they did a nice job of creating a world and make it interesting to me that I didn't care about from a Avatar perspective. So I'm really curious, and people, you've seen people's reactions when they walk into Batu and see the Millennium Falcon for the first time. So they've done a great job with it. But again, the question is, are they going to do something to bring Batu to life in the stories? So,
Well, and you come up to another point, and I'm not saying this to also be ungrateful because I still haven't gone to the park yet. But how long does Batu as a park satisfy fans until fans want something else?
yeah,
Like if you go, I would say if you go to this park twice, you've pretty much experienced that park. I mean, how long is this story going to be relevant? Because it's, it might work for a movie. You can always rewatch the movie, and that's great. But 30 years from now, are we going back to Batu just for the same damn story? And they've talked about how they've already come up with some ways to evolve the park, but the rides are
right.
going to have to change out. You're telling me that you're going to have the 2 rides there? I don't think for the long term that's possible. Like I would think that you'd want to move Star Tours there, maybe, or maybe. I mean, I kind of had always wished that they would do like a Star Wars park, not like a storied park, because I feel like
Mhm.
they're in this weird situation now where there's a limited timeline on how this stays relevant with fans. Because like I
Right.
said at the beginning of this little rant, you go once or twice, you've got it all. You don't really have a reason to go back. I know. Well, you take the kids back. All right, fine. So you give me 3 times. But if you're really trying to keep the fans coming back again and again, you're going to have to find new ways to bring that in. And I would imagine that would be enhancing the story. And then there's like the mechanical for it. It just, I am nervous about that one aspect. I was pretty open about that when they first announced it. Again, I love that exists. I want to go. I'm going to eat the food. I have the cookbook. I have the
Right.
cookbook from Galaxy's Edge, and I'm going to make those pita bread things. I'm so excited. But I am kind of curious to see how this plays out. How do they keep this park relevant in 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is sort of like the evolution and the multiple versions um, of the was it the Star Tours ride. So, I from what I understand, the Rise of Resistance ride is supposed to be the best ride ever created. So the question is, what do you do with walkers and free flowing um, sort of transports and all the things that go into that? And how do you keep that relevant? And you know what? The other thing that I'm really curious about, and now we're going way off topic, but now that we know how Kylo Ren's story ends, do you care that much to see him in these things around the park? So I'm very, it's a challenge, and luckily, neither one of us works for Disney, so it's not our job to fix. But it's really interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves, because Disney has invested a lot in this property, in building this park, in building these stories, and I'm sure they're not going to screw up. They don't screw things up too often.
I'm right there with you. It's not my problem, and that's the best part about this whole thing. It's not my problem. I just need to go, show up, and have a good time. And I look forward to that. I look forward to that opportunity. I broke my rule. I said I would never go on YouTube and watch the videos that fans take from inside the park, and someone captured the entire lightsaber ceremony.
Yeah.
And I really want to do it now. It looks really cool. There's like 30 or 40 people, and the music swells a lot, and the
Yeah.
guy has really good inflections. And I was like, oh my! I'd like to be there myself. They do this thing called, it's like the lightsaber activation or whatnot, and so all it is you put your hilt, you build your hilt, you put it in, and then they install the blade,
Yeah.
so everyone can touch their tips, which in college that means something different, but they all ignite their sabers, and it's like this. It's like kind of cool. I mean, it's really it's really. I mean, that's that's about as nerdy as I will get with Star Wars. Like, I'm willing to go build the saber and do that, but I won't do much more than that. It looks really cool. I mean, the attention to detail is there, and I just hope you have the blast of your life when you're there in LA. I want you to have a good time with Jason, obviously. I want you to I was getting emotional hearing you talk about how the fact that your dad was able to step in and take that ticket, because in my head, I'm like, if Pete's about to offer me a ticket to go to Celebration and that's like, I'm going to say yes in this moment, no doubt. And I don't even care that it's only 2 months after my wedding. Like, I don't care. But I'm glad I kept my mouth shut, because it's obviously so much better that you're taking your dad, and I'm not trying to look like a douche being like, hey, take me. But no, like, I just want you to have the best time. And like, dude, that's so cool, because like, Jax is going to be like, he's going to be like 40, and he's going to be able to tell his kids about that time that his dad and grandpa and sister got to go to. I'm getting emotional again just thinking about it. Like, that is so cool. That's what it's about. Yeah. That's Star Wars.
That's what Star Wars is about. Absolutely. Yep.
Are you done with me yet?
I not, I don't want you to take it personally, but yeah, I think we've talked about a lot. I don't even know how I'm going to put this in the podcast stream and describe it. The description section is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think we'll make it work.
That's what you put. That's what you put in the description right there. We made it work.
We made it work. It was a great conversation though, and those of you who stuck around, the 10 of you who are still hanging out, God bless you. Thanks for hanging, man.
Hey, we want to remind you. Well, I mean, we imagine that because if you're watching this live, But either way, best place to follow us for updates on the show and to talk with Pete and I at Streaming SW on the Twitter. Always can catch our live show on Beyond the Blast Doors. You know the day and you know the time when we go live because you're following us on the Twitter account, but if you can't join us for the live show, maybe you know this already because that's how you're listening. You're listening to the podcast version of the show, which is on the Around the Galaxy podcast feed. What does that mean? It means, if you can hear me over Pete sneezing, that if you just go and search Around the Galaxy wherever you listen to podcasts, you'll also be able to find Streaming Star Wars, and you can check us out there. You can also go to streamingstarwars.com for the latest episodes as well. Pete, anything that we need to talk about for the next coming week? Anything you referenced an upcoming episode? Now's your time to promote that if you want.
Yeah, Charles Ross. It was so much fun. I saw him do the one-man Star Wars show with my wife on Valentine's Day, and the next day it was the first sort of on location Around the Galaxy where I literally sat across a table from my guest, and we had so much fun. He's such an interesting guy, and his perspectives, a guy who does a 3-hour or a 2-hour version of all 3 of the original trilogy movies as a one-man show. He's got to love Star Wars. So it was a cool episode. That'll drop early next week.
That'll be awesome. Looking forward to listening to that. I don't know why I had a space in my mind right now. The next episode of Beyond the Blast Doors, I'm hoping to do a little bit more deep dive in the toy fair that we talked about earlier in the show. Go through those new toys, some Clone Wars goodies there, some Mandalorian goodies. Go into that. I want to explore Clone Wars a bit more. My 5, the 5 Clone Wars episodes I want to have the direct influence on this final season. Talk about that and a few other things. Hoping to do that on Sunday. It's just kind of a weird time for me, and so Beyond the Blast Doors doesn't really happen necessarily on Sundays. It kind of happens whenever I have time. So if I can get some free time here, I honestly think I want to move it to like Monday mornings, or if I can move it to Saturday nights. Saturday nights might be better for everybody, especially for the live show. So I'll keep you posted. You can always follow me at BTBD Star Wars on the Facebook, on the Twitter, and on the Instagram. Pete, it was such a fun time. Episode 14 is in the books.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. This was a ton of fun.
That was the worst German accent ever. I want to see Jojo Rabbit really bad because everyone just says it's a fantastic film. And I was trying to channel my German, and I failed. I'm sorry. That was terrible. Hey, I'm gonna play the closer now because it's the end of the episode, and we love that you join us here for Streaming Star Wars. I'm Ammo. He's Fletcher, and I'm talking over the music bed because it's still going up. Yeah, I'm not even pointing fingers at the point. What's the point of pointing fingers at this point? Hey, we'll see you back here next week to talk about the second episode of Clone Wars